It's quite an exciting thing because you've only got 50 or 60 seconds from bottom to top.
The top of the hill there at turn 2 and looking over the coast, it's something pretty special.
Literally on the harbour in Newcastle foreshore, we ran motorcycle races.
Everyone's favourite thing to do is to race.
It was quite an exhilarating experience watching such a high-powered vehicle around this little dirt track.
Mine was the 80s when I sort of visited the Rickshaw stuff, and it was all the LH Tiranas and the Sandmans.
Allegedly there was this Kooragang Island where allegedly people used to go over there and race.
Was it illegal? To us, no.
Newcastle is a petrol town, both cars and bikes.
Anything you could figure out you could do on an engine to make it go faster, they would do.
My cars are all originally restored and I'm not interested in modifications.
Yeah, it's just going a bit over the edge, I think. Makes it sick.
And the people you meet, you know, we've got friendships for 30 years, some of us. Port and polish the heads.
Big 178 extractors.
Holden 253 with a flat tappet mild cam.
393 Cleveland Stroker.
625 thou lift at the valve.
Sydney Harbour Tunnel exhaust pipes at the back, the 5-inch.
Cum crank in it, full floating gudgeons, SRP forged pistons.
Good catback, OTR.
2 carbies, Holly Sniper setup on it.
Supercharge and turbocharge and
High-rise intake manifold with a 750 double pumper Holly on it.
My definition of a hoon is just someone who loves cars and loves going fast.
Probably mad.
What do I think of hoons? Idiots.
All my mates are hoons. I'm a hoon true and true, I'd admit it.
Everything's a hoon now. I'd prefer a revhead.
Sick as person. Yeah.
Hoon to me is some dickhead that'll do a burnout up the main street of Charlestown.
Burnouts in public streets and doing stupid things.
I've done some silly stuff. Young, dumb, we all do it.
Smoking the wheels is good fun.
If it was been thrown at me, I wouldn't be happy.
Someone does hoon at our events, they very quickly get pulled up.
These young guys coming through now, it's a fame thing on TikTok and whatnot to go and do silly stuff.
Phones back in the day and you pulled it out, wouldn't be good for you. His phone would be smashed.
The hoons, as I know them, mostly abuse their motor cars and I don't understand that. That's crazy.
We're not about going fast. Our cars are traditionally all about the style side of things.
I'd like to separate hoon and car enthusiasts.
They don't want to actually damage their car. You know, they've spent so much time painstakingly rebuilding them or painting them or whatever.
Oh, we're car enthusiasts, we just want to go to car show. Yeah, but where do it all start? Like, you can't be hypocrites too. They forget they used to street race, they forget they've been to Kooragang, they forget all about this, and then, oh, well, hang on, what were you doing at that age?
When I look back at it as a mature guy, I probably wasn't a hoon, to be honest.
Newcastle has always had an obsession with petrol.
Newcastle just having so many tradesmen, so many people that used to work at BHP in the mines as mechanics, as electricians. They really love their cars. They're just born with it in their veins.
We bought a surfboard. We had one surfboard between the three of us, so we tried to surfing. That didn't work. That wasn't going to happen. I reckon Newcastle probably had the biggest car culture and street race scene ever.
It's just one big family and it's my whole life, really.
One phone call and I've got a heap of mates here with beautiful cars, you know, so they're good people.
Sunday night, you could not move into foreshore, like you'd just be packed.
A little bit of a, hey, this is where we're going to meet, and then you'd meet up at a certain location and then, boom, righto, let's go here and we'll have a few races.
Every Sunday night we'd be at Kooragang. Then we would go up the top of town to Pacific Street. There was a cafe on the corner of Pacific Street and Hunter Street, and it was called the Petrol Heads Hangout.
Hunter Street was always a good place to patrol, particularly Friday, Saturday nights. You get
the hotted up cars and the Burnouts, and you just give them a ticket and let them go. And
so here in the foreshore, we've got a really good place we can park up, show off a lot of stuff.
Town used to be packed, foreshore, bumper to bumper. And you'd have your different groups. I was a all-rounder, but Nobby's was the main ground. Nobby's car park, good guys there. That was best times, like good party atmosphere too.
I think of the Parthenon Milk Bar back in the days, and 10 Foot Hills Angel met us sing Normie out of the place. And
Don't you ever let a chance go by, oh Lord, don't you ever let it...
Yeah, Bob Hudson and the Newcastle song, the kids hanging out the windows, screaming at the girls and revving them up. That was the culture, that summed it up really, really well.
Newcastle is a petrol town, both cars and bikes. Actually 30% higher than the national average of motorcycle ownership than anywhere else in the country. It really traces back to Johnny Hoskins coming to Maitland on the 15th of December 1923 under lights, had motorcycle racing as the feature entertainment, and that was the beginning of World Speedway. Most of the riders came from the Newcastle area, took their road stuff off the bikes, rode them around, and then piled it back on and rode them home. Because they were broadsiding their motorcycles, they were digging in their left-hand foot pegs. So they removed the left-hand foot pegs, which is a trait of a speedway bike, no left-hand foot peg, just a little bar. And the other thing that they really did here, and it's, again, ironic because it's a steel city, or was a steel city back then, they actually made their steel shoes out of worn-out coal shovels. The Americans didn't do it, we did it. They built a new speedway in Darling Street, Hamilton. 42,000 people there opening night in November 1925 was over a third of Newcastle's population. Like, unbelievable. You can backtrace Speedway as it is now all the way back to Johnny Hoskins in Maitland in 1923, but you don't go any further.
King Edward Park hill climb started back in April 1951. The Mattara Hillclimb was actually commenced in 1963.
It's always been well known pretty much around Australia as the most picturesque and one of the most difficult and scenic hill climbs in Australia. The second oldest hill climb in Australia too.
By the last event in 2015, there had actually been 80 individual hill climbs. We ran rounds of the Australian Championship in 1972 and a round again in 1973.
Very differing cars from each other. You had open wheelers, more sedan type cars.
Some fairly strange cars were seen in the pits.
Runs from your normal street sedans right through to the very highly developed formula cars.
Just very exciting to see those cars racing in that little environment that's normally very slow. Sunday drivers coming through to these full-on race cars going through. It was really a little street circuit within our own city. It was fantastic.
My dad took me to the first one in 1951 and I've been to most of the ones ever since, competing in some in the later period. It's quite an exciting thing because you've only got 50 or 60 seconds from bottom to top.
You've got to be able to go flat out from the start and concentrate like crazy for a short amount of time.
There's a couple of very tight spots.
The record for King Edward Park is well under 50 seconds. A lot of cars were 10 seconds slower than that, but everybody had fun doing it.
Obviously, not everybody was caught up in the excitement.
So my uncle's Mike Nedelko, known name of the older era of racing in Newcastle. Came from Ukraine in 1950 and then always had a passion for building things with his hands. And at one stage he drove past an old MG dealership and saw out the front was basically what they call a coaster, which is just like a kid's billy cart. So he bought that for £5, pinched the lawnmower mower out of his stepfather's lawnmower. And then they started to realise that that car was never going to be a true race car. So he changed the wheels, put an Austin front end on it. They bought a Triumph motorbike engine to put in the back of it. And he thought, well, let's enter it into the hill climb. He only just turned 17 and he ended up coming second in his class. He was up against 3 factory Cooper Nortons. They were worth about £1,000 each. His car was worth about £10. He came second by 100,000ths of a second, and the factory driver came over to him at the end and said, son, you deserve to win this. He said, I cannot believe what you have done in that car versus us as a true factory team. They were dumbfounded. That underdog spirit is very Novocastrian, which I think is fantastic.
It was just a really good family atmosphere in the middle of the town. It was the biggest event with motorsport that Newcastle had. The whole town had come out there to watch it and watch the greats and watch the not so greats go up and down the hill.
I do actually have one record permanently because the year that I won my class, the big rock fell down on South Newcastle Promenade, so we were never able to run the full course again after that, which was unfortunate because that was the really good hill climb when we had the whole course from South Newcastle Beach right up to the top of King Edward Park.
And when they've always had the hill climb like featured on TV and that, they always put a camera on the pinch because that's where there's going to be a crash. And we'd be silly enough to race our street cars up there, so how stupid are we? The hill climb would be on Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday night the poles would be out, they'd unlock them, take them out. But there was no police or anything there. So midnight, everybody would go up the pinch. And if you've ever been up there, it starts off wide and it gets narrower and narrower. And as you're going up there as a young kid in a thrifty Monaro in the middle of dark thinking, this is narrow. And you get narrower and narrower and narrower. And you get the top and you jump over and you went, how cool is that? So you go around again and do it again.
There was a new project announced called the Babers Way.
2016 these works would have been in progress, and once completed we wouldn't have been able to run through the pinch.
The MG Car Club that runs it ultimately decided it was no longer feasible and no longer a good thing to do.
2015 was the last hurrah, so to speak, give it a lot of publicity.
But they've always had their home circuit.
What we call Ringwood Park Motorsport Complex north of Raymond Terrace.
And it's actually quite a nice, twisty, challenging circuit, if anything.
The event, Mattara, has been continuing ever since, and it's a lot easier and people still have as much fun.
Well, the burnout in the racing scene is to get the tyres hot. It's like the V8 Supercars, they do the swerving of the tyres to get them hot. In drag racing, you heat the back tyres up to make them sticky so you get traction to go.
Smoking the wheels is good fun. Call it a mad burnout, you know. These days they call it power skids.
That minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, all your worries go and it's just you and your car and it's the best feeling. Undescribable, really.
A bunch of the younger ones these days going out in front of their traffic lights and people don't know. And there's other people's lives in danger. That's not cool. Like, it might look cool, and you've all been young, but we weren't that stupid. We had places to do it.
I've actually been paid to teach people how to do burnouts and donuts and figure eights and anything you can think of on a skid pan, and it's, yeah, great fun.
At the end of the day, it was a big thing. When you left someone's house, they sort of did a bit of a burnout. Do it for gender reveals, all sorts of stuff like that. Weddings were usually a big thing. You sort of did a bit of a burnout at a wedding as you left, sort of thing, with a bride and groom in the car, and I've done probably plenty of them.
If you just had a fit of rage, that's what it looked like in a car sense. Destroying a car in every way, shape or form doesn't just come down to the tyres. You've also got your engines, your gearbox, your differentials, sometimes your suspension. Burnouts are just all out, be the most expensive thing.
The top New Zealander, Lyndon Kendall, as well as Australia's national.
It was great. I love the Motordrome. It was a good, you know, there was nothing on of a Saturday night or whatever, and it was on. You'd go up there and get on the piss on the hill, and you know, it just was a good entertaining night.
Just remember Friday night was a the family night to go to the Motordrome, and there'd be a line up down to Tomigo there, and it'd be so excited in the car. You'd get there and you'd smell the fumes. You just get covered in mud or the grit off the track, and then there'd be the big things where the visiting Yanks versus the Aussies.
Fantastic. Just the patriotism of the Australians just for their own local drivers. They were very negative towards the opposition, let's put it that way. There was no friendly being with the visiting teams, but yeah, very exciting times there at the Motordrome.
It was quite an exhilarating experience watching such a high-powered vehicle around this little dirt track. It was real balls to the wall type racing. There was dust and methanol in the air. And as a young kid, you were just obsessed with it. You wanted to go there every weekend, and everyone became a hero from it. Every man and their dog wanted to race it, and it was just perfect.
You know, I was involved in a lot of the motorcycle racing. The Speedway England versus Australia Speedway Chess at the Motordrome. Dale Buggins jumping 25 cars, breaking Evel Knievel's record.
When there was a Demolition derby on, we would all go. We would all get a bomb, and there'd be a whole bunch of us. So it could take an hour easy to take everybody out. I think I come third once. So I was out there for a long time just getting smashed front, back, sides. Oh yeah, you get whiplash. You know, you'd get hit in the back, you'd be hitting the sides. The secret was you just had to take everybody out, so it doesn't matter how you did it. So the last car to win got the money.
I think they're crazy, really. Wouldn't catch me out there.
A lot of courage. Yeah. No brains.
I can remember one day in the factory on a weekend when we got them all ready to go. We were inside this factory and we were actually crashing them and smashing them up inside this factory on a Sunday. And one of them got against the wall and was doing a burnout, and next thing the fire brigade come in and they just stand there going, "What are you guys doing?" We went, "We're just practicing."
I've just had always a passion for pulling things apart, putting them back together, making them go faster, making them better. You need to match everything from the harmonic balancer bolt to the wheel nuts. And it's getting them to marry up, to be synchronised, to make everything work, to all work together at one point. Then you've got suspension. So you put 90-10 shocks in the front so the front would lift, and you had problems with control arms. They'd want to twist, and so you had to box them in, strengthen them up. There was just many things, and you'd spend a lot of hours searching, researching, and make it all happen.
We wanted to go fast. We had to change the carburetor. We had to unbolt that and put one on, you know, like. And then you did that and it didn't work, so you had to figure out why it didn't work, you know. When nowadays, if it don't work, you just Google it and that'll tell you how to fix it.
Most of the guys at the BHP were car guys like us. They can make all the control arms for the fronts. Any adapter for a mechanical part of a speedway car, it was made in the BHP. Foreign orders, as we used to say, would come out there every night.
Tony Webster, he does some crazy modifications. He goes outside the square.
I've got the whole V8 Supercar running gear into that old panel van, which is a wooden frame 1930 model car with probably a 500 horsepower Group A engine. So it's pretty scary that way.
This is a 1959 Messerschmitt. It's the only car I know that's got 4 speeds in reverse as well as forward.
This thing's big block nitrous, okay, so you add nitrous to go fast.
Anything you could figure out you could do on an engine to make it go faster, they would do.
You'd work all week to be able to go and buy that fucking Holly carburetor to try and make your car go fast.
You can pay $20,000 or $30,000 for a set of heads. If an engine's got 400 horsepower, put a blower on it, you're going to get 700 horsepower out of it.
Some guys then started putting superchargers and turbochargers on the same engine. Insanely. Then they went into putting aeroplane engines in them. I know a couple of guys with aeroplane engines in cars, V12 tank engines into hot rods and that sort of stuff.
Cars are a lot faster than they are now than they were back then, you know, technology's changed. We're building cars for $5,000, you know, a fast car now is 500,000. So if you got the wallet, you got the budget, that's how fast you'll go.
Rickshaw's Hot-rod Club is the second oldest club in New South Wales, formed in 1961. We used to run the Woolstores Hot-rod Show many years ago, which was a great event. It was a state title show.
Mine was the 80s when I sort of visited the Rickshaw stuff, and it was all the LH Tiranas and the LX Tiranas and the Sandman's skulls and stuff painted on the side of it. And it was just a great outing, you know, just to see so many people who had a passion for cars enjoying themselves in that environment. The effort that people put into the cars was insane, absolutely insane.
The Rickshaw Hot-rod Show was just sensational, you know, especially for a young petrol head.
That was as close as we got to show and shines in Newcastle. Cars from all over Australia would come.
That was a fantastic show. People used to travel from everywhere, like Tasmania, Western Australia, religiously come to our show at the Woolstores.
Pristine machinery, yeah, absolutely fantastic.
And the displays alone, people used to spend $10,000, $20,000 on their display to display their vehicles. Like, it was amazing.
When you talk to some of the owners, they probably treat them better than they treat their kids.
All the kids I grew up with now had their own kids, and now they're driving hot rods. Those days, it was just one big party atmosphere. It was fantastic. Everyone got on, everyone just had a ball.
So Newcastle had a lot of organised racing, but to me the real exciting stuff was actually Kooragang Island.
Oh, the island. Where do I start with that? Like, my parents raced over the island. The island's just been, oh God, 50 years, easily.
Kooragang Island would have to be one of the best street racing circuits in Australia. This is an area that's ultra wide. It's like a 4, 5, 6-lane highway, and it's kilometres long and it's isolated.
Located under Stockton Bridge, quite a big bridge. It was the lead out all the way to Port Stephens on its own little island. Secluded enough that most people couldn't see you, but obviously with the word getting around, it got very popular over the years.
And it'd be packed. both sides of the roads, mate, it would be packed. There'd be people and cars everywhere.
Sunday afternoons, it was bigger than your night's football game.
1,000 people there on a Sunday afternoon was the main day.
Car-wise, you'd have easy 300 cars.
It was a great atmosphere. Like, it was really, you wanted to be there.
Some nights we'd be there 7 nights a week.
Sometimes on a Sunday you might cruise over to see who's over there, and there'd be 2 or 3 cars, yeah, whatever, and you drive back home, you'd be going over Tool Street Bridge and there's 6 cars going, right? They weren't going to gyms to get a fucking milkshake. So then we'd have to turn around and go back.
There was nothing to get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, get your car out, we're going over the island, you know.
Hugs, credit to him. I tell you, he'd always just throw the call out, throw the message, and I'd be like, I'm in. Whatever time of the night it is, let's do it.
No social media, no camera phones, no, you know. If I wanted to find out if Steve was going over the island, I had to drive to his house, you know. You'd never ring in case his mum answered the phone. You'd go, oh, hello, Mrs. Davies, we just checked to see if Steve's going over the island tonight, you know. So shit was different, man.
It was always the meet-up and hangout spot for everyone that loved cars. So if you had a hot car, you could even have a standard car. You wanted to be seen, you went down the Kooragang. And that's where the real competition, American graffiti type stuff in Newcastle really, really did happen.
If there was a guy from out of town coming up, you know what I mean, and someone said, oh, Joe Smith's coming up from Penrith and he's got a fast car, fuck me, mate. The island would be packed, you know what I mean?
We'd have Sydney versus Newcastle, we'd have Central Coast versus Newcastle.
I went over there and rode some motorcycles a few Friday and Sunday nights, won a bit of money as well.
Never pink slips, you'd always hear rumours of pink slips, but there was money involved. People, yeah, you want it, yeah, let's run, $100, no worries.
I used to start wanting money because I'd been undefeated in 5 years, and I started hitting people up for money and no one wanted to. I could have 15 races in the afternoon and win it by miles every time.
Was it illegal? To us, no. But we're away from everyone. We're in the public eye.
If you wanted to show your mate just how good your big block in your HQ is, or you just put a new turbo on your Capri, that's where you went to really prove it.
There was runs, there was burnouts.
As a young guy, you don't see the dangers in things. I, at that age, saw it. It was anarchy, it was mayhem, it was really crazy.
4 car wide drag, so 4 cars wide, and then 2 cars come back the other way and they clip their mirrors and broke their mirrors on either car. Yeah, I seen that. Whitney was right next to me. It was awesome, yeah. And they were going probably 120 plus.
Up and down both sides of the road, the end of the cul-de-sac, 4 or 5 cars deep, and just, yeah, blind up, someone to start you, and off you go.
I was a starter. 15 years, literally, I was a starter. So I'd get the boys up, right, one, put them close to the line, and I'd just go 1, 2, 3, and bang, send the hand drop, boom. If there's 2 cars racing, there'd be another 20 lined up ready to go.
Looking at the guy next to you, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's a psych out, I guess, you know what I mean? You want to get off the line before he does. Do you know the guy? Is his car faster than yours, you know what I mean? Like,
sometimes there'd be 3, 4.
6 cars running side by side, 400 metres.
Yeah, look, it was hillbilly.
Big wide roads and the long straight, you had plenty of time to brake, stop, you know. I mean, 'cause some of these things get a fair bit of pace up.
There used to be big potholes on there. Wasn't the most slick, best racetrack I've ever been on. It was definitely very, very how you going.
Yeah. It's the thrill. You get pushed back in that seat and just like, whoa.
let's hope that the 42 million hours you spent before working on it is all justified doing that.
Racing a car that was fast at the track, but beating them on the street, that's where it was at.
There was a white painted line, so you know, always over that first, that you were the winner. But people used to be on the finish line and cheer you on, and you know, arms waving around and cheering and all that sort of thing. So you knew you were a winner.
It's very exciting, very exciting. The adrenaline, it takes you a while to actually calm down once you finish the actual race.
There's never any aggro, you know. If someone beats someone in a race, I don't ever remember any aggro times. It's like, well, fuck, I'll have to make my car fast, you know what I mean?
Everyone had respect back in the day.
Drag racing is probably the worst value for money sport. You spend more money to spend less time in the car.
We're all kids and GT Falcons were new, so we hadn't seen V8s until then. Then there'd be guys coming in V8 Falcons, GT Falcons, Monaros. If you could get a thrifted Monaro, a HO Falcon or something, you were the king dick, you know what I mean? They were only worth $3,000 in those days compared to now. Now, you got to buy a Phase 3 Falcon, you're going to pay like $500,000, you know what I mean?
Once it all racing stopped, you'd get all the boys doing burnouts and they just go friggin' mad.
We have seen stuff that has gone wrong there, and yes, people have crashed into each other.
I was over there tonight, Barry Whitney got killed. He was racing an FJ Holden. In the finishing line, it sort of got loose and crossed up and that, and it actually hit a telephone pole and broke in 3 pieces. It was the first friend I'd ever known to get killed, actually.
It used to get out of control, really did.
The police knew it was on every Sunday, because it was on every Sunday. Probably every 6 months, maybe, like a year, they just do a raid, they just come down.
The coppers could see the island from up the top of the Newcastle police station, so they could, binoculars, whatever, I don't know, and they could see when we were there or when it was going on.
When we got reports of it, of course, we had to go and investigate and go and see if we could shut it down. It was illegal drag racing, but it wasn't on a public thoroughfare. It was, out of the way. There was never really any great danger to the general public.
When the police came, if you were lucky, you'd only get the one car with the blue light and everyone just flee. The bad ones were the raids, the full raids. They'd come with the RTA, they'd come with the paddy wagons.
They knew we were coming. Only one way into Kooragang Island. You can't sneak in. In highway patrol cars, you can't sneak in there. If we caught them drag racing and we could actually pin something, yeah, of course you did. But they had their lookouts and their cockatoos, and that was very rare.
When the lights went on, there was just people scurrying like ants. You'd have people with the bonnets up, putting things back on that were meant to be on, and disconnecting things that were not meant to be there.
Most of us boys would sort of get out of there, because if they started going through us, they probably shouldn't have been on the road, a lot of the cars that were there,
You'd defect a few vehicles, but they would just go and change the tyres, get the defect taken off, put the old tyres back on and go and do it again.
I was one of the first on the island to get my car impounded for drag racing.
We got caught over the island, I remember, and I was 18 once and give them a mouthful of chicken. Where did that get me? Fucking nowhere real fast, you know what I mean? Nowadays I'll pull their phone out and video them, and then, they'll be on social media, the cops won't leave me alone, they keep hassling me. Yeah, because you're being a dick, you know what I mean? Give respect, I suppose, you got caught, you're doing the wrong thing, suck it up and move on,
And today, the highway patrol cars, they can check 6 registration numbers in a second, tell you everything about the owner, the car, who's licensed, who's suspended. See, all of that, we never knew any of that.
One night, the police come in at Cooper S, and they actually did a U-turn right in the bottom and went too far, went into the sand and got bogged. So then the 2 cops got out and just stood there, and we had to go lift the car out. They had no hope of getting this Mini out of the bog. And so everybody went over there and everybody grabbed a part of the fender, and they had those little fiberglass plastic mudguards on them, on the little extensions on them. So everybody made sure they got one of them and broke it off as they lifted the car out. So and no one got booked that night. The police just got back in the car and thanked us for leaving. When they would have got back to the station, they would have went, uh-oh, how are we going to report this with every little mudguard broken?
I remember when I started in the Special Traffic Patrol, I'd drive to work in my Morris 1100 with my red P plate on. Then I'd jump behind the wheel of a GTHO Falcon or an XU1 Tirana. As a young guy, just turned 20, driving the fastest cars in the world, legally on the road. You talk about Hoons, I guess I would have fitted the definition perfectly, except I didn't do the burnouts.
I don't know the coppers, but I know I've seen 2 highway trolls have a bit of a run over there. Back in the Commodore days, yeah, I never get 2 coppers pulling up. Wherefore, next thing you know, stall it up and off they go. And just left, and we're like, that was cool.
Ireland, back in the day, you couldn't beat it. It was a place to be, it was a place to go with your car.
We didn't realise how lucky we were and how cool it was to do that, People might watch this and think, that's stupid, we can all go to Western Sydney or Eastern Creek and race. We didn't have that.
Probably was dangerous. Some of the things that happened over there were dangerous, but it's just sort of missed that whole environment, that atmosphere.
In the end, with the crowds there, I was too scared in case someone pulled out because I would kill them. I used to do over the finish at the track, I did 180 over the line. And doing the same sort of speeds over there was just not an option. It's just too scary. Because someone pulled out or someone ran out in the road, bang, they were killed.
We see McLeish now jumping on the back of these 2 as well.
For the 2015 Australian Supermoto Championships, literally on the harbour in Newcastle foreshore, we ran motorcycle races. Told council that there'd be 5,000 to 10,000 people there. I think it was closer to 30. They loved it and got the funding to run this event for 3 years. Anyway, after the minister's speech and that sort of stuff, a guy came up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Murray Hodges from V8 Supercars," and we're standing in the car park at Newcastle Foreshore, and I said, "Turn around, Murray." He looked over towards Stockton. I said, "See that green grass over there at Stockton? Goes all the way to the Stockton Bridge. I've counted you can park at least 25,000 cars there. So as many people as you can bring over on a ferry, they're that close to this racetrack." And he lit up like a Christmas tree. You know, I just knew from then on that, you know, supercars were coming to town.
I felt absolutely ecstatic that Supercars finally noticed our little hard-working tradie motorsport aficionado little area that was just diehards about it. We finally got noticed, and we finally got the biggest event in our backyard.
I actually remember the moment that we found out Supercars were coming to Newcastle and that we were definitely racing there. And I think I actually cried with excitement.
I was over the moon to have my local city that I've grown up in all my life to host a great race.
When we first heard the V8 Supercars were coming, we just couldn't believe that we're going to get a motor race in Newcastle finally. After all the years of trying, not alone something so big.
Great atmosphere, you know, brings people to Newcastle, puts Newcastle on the map.
Heaps of people come and stay there. We have caravans outside, we have swags in on the floor. So we get a lot of people come and stay, and we all go in the V8 Supercars. And every time I'm in there, I always bump into at least another dozen guys from Newcastle back from the old days.
The imagery is sensational. Like that first year, like holy dooly, you know, there wasn't a bad shot in terms of angles of the city, and you know, that makes us proud as Novocastrians.
It makes a truckload of money for the local area, and for us, we feel it all the way up in Heatherbrae, just from people coming in from all across the country to watch the great race.
We used to have it in Homebush and we didn't quite get the crowds there, but the passion in this regional area is unbelievable. So the fans are second to none around the whole calendar. It's awesome to have them along, and you know, for us supercar drivers, it's something pretty special.
The Newcastle circuit is probably one of the most challenging circuits I've raced on.
The track at speed it's crazy. The undulation there for a street circuit is just something you don't get anywhere else.
It's real walls, this narrow vision, blind corners, up and down. It's a roller coaster ride. But if you put one thing wrong, you pay for it.
It's very cool for Aussie racing cars. I know the supercars, they struggle with it a little bit because the cars are so large and they struggle with passing.
Yeah, for me, it's probably our tightest street circuit we go to. Some of the street corners there are all 90 degrees, but quite tight.
Driving one of these cars is just like jumping on a bull and just grabbing it by the horns and by the tickler at the same time and hoping that you don't fall off the end.
It's just also the location is pretty special. When you get up to the top of the hill there at turn 2 and looking over the coast, it's something pretty special.
To get car racing to come to Newcastle, finally we've got something we can go watch. Anybody that plays football can go watch the Jets play anytime, the Knights play and all that stuff. We have nothing. For us as major car guys, and there's a lot of us in town, we can actually pay and be a part of it without having to go to Queensland or Victoria to see it. I think it's the best thing ever happened in Newcastle for us guys that don't play sport.
I think a few people were a bit upset about it. I'm guessing a few of the locals around here, which I don't want to annoy anyone. Sorry, but it's a couple of days. Let's get people in. Let's show this city off.
When it was announced, it was very exciting, and it is, you know, in theory, the pinnacle of our motorsport in Australia. If you know, other than the F1 that visits, it can definitely benefit the city, but perhaps the current form is not quite right, because I think there's, you know, organisations and businesses locally that aren't actually benefiting from that. I think there's merit in we should have something in terms of motor racing. If that current state, I'm not sure if it's the ideal scenario for everyone in business and so on. Yeah.
I think Newcastle needs a permanent racetrack. I think that would be really cool. We've got the support here. We've got the people who want it. We've got the Hoons. And then we've also got, you know, the business side of things.
What they got there at Eastern Creek now it's sensational. That you got the circuit, you got the drag strip and now the speedway. Something like that up here would be unbelievable.
You got your burnout area for the guys to go and do all that. You got a raceway for all the race guys, big skid pan for your drift guys.
So if we had somewhere that people could get off the street, somewhere local, and do this stuff in a controlled environment, you would see more of these cars out.
There's that many cars that just get locked in sheds, you just don't see them. There's a lot of fast cars out there, got race cars that don't get used.
I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me, just pleased for defects. I think a lot of people have taken their cars off the road.
I can't afford to lose a car. It's a family member. I've had it for 24 years now. It's part of the family.
So we haven't got that area to go to keep it off the streets. And we used to have the Motordrome and we used to have a few other things. Everything's closed down now.
We tried many a time to get a proper drag strip built in Newcastle. We had meetings after meetings. I'm going on for 30 years.
There is a talk of one at Raymond Terrace. It's been around for years, never got off the ground due to financial reasons. I'd like to see action on that front.
There is a circuit being developed on land adjacent to us at Italia Road, and that will be a full race circuit suitable for, well, even up to supercars.
It needs a motorsports park. Guaranteed, like Eastern Creek, Sydney Motorsports Park, it needs it. There's that many people here that would enjoy it and use it, and it'll be great for Newcastle or the Hunter, yeah.
Because up in Newcastle they have very strange mating habits. All the young women of Newcastle walk down the main street, which is called Hunter Street, for reasons that will become obvious later on in the song. All the young men of Newcastle drive down Hunter Street in their hot FJ Holdens with chrome-plated grease nipples and double reverse overhead twin-cam door handles. And they lean out the window and say real cool things to the Sheilas on the footpath, like, "G'day. Where you going? You do it?" And every now and then, of course, one of the young ladies thinks to herself, what she thinks. Don't you ever let a chance